After they won the FA Cup at the weekend, Arsenal legend Charlie Nicholas joined OTB AM for a chat about what Arteta needs to do and, of course, his own career as well. Have a look.
Okay, delighted to say that former Arsenal and Celtic striker Charlie Nicholas is with us. Good morning, Charlie. You must have enjoyed the cup final on Saturday.
Yes, good morning. I most certainly did. You know, I think being a Gunners fan for 7-8 years has been painful in a strange way, because you could see we were falling, we were sliding as the standards that Arsene Wenger had set. But we'd still nick an FA Cup here and there, I think 3 towards these last 5 years. And it kept us going a little bit. But I think we've actually seen the demise of the team. And Arteta's come in, and my goodness me, he came in at probably the worst time I can remember an Arsenal manager coming in, probably, you know, since the Premier League began. So he had to pick up what the mess was. He had to identify who was the good ones and the bad ones, not so much the talent, because if you play at Arsenal, there is talent. But I think generally what he had to do was, who'll buy into my philosophy? Who's the listeners? Who really wants to be ambitious and get this club back? And that was going to be painful and slow, and it has been. But the build-up to the victory against Man City, obviously the league victory against Liverpool, I suddenly believed that what Mikel Arteta was doing was he was fixing the issues in his mind, and he was also getting Aubameyang, Lacazette, some of the youngsters on board, and of course Sabias has been excellent since Arteta came in. And then the defence has improved. I mean, Tierney's helped a lot, but the goalkeeping situation has been sparklingly impressive. So all in all, I was delighted, but not just by the win, but by the performance.
For sure. The remarkable thing about Mikel Arteta, and it's probably more noticeable because there's no fans there, it was touched on quite a bit over the course of the weekend, his live instructions and how audible they were, and how in-game, the way he's able to figure out a scenario and adapt seems to be really, really impressive for a young manager.
Tremendously, but he's learned from the best, isn't he? I mean, Pep is the best of technical wizardry that we understand. You know, I mean, Klopp's made an amazing reputation at Liverpool for rock and roll football. We've had the organisation and hard to beat Jose Mourinho. We've had the flamboyant, young and exciting and energetic Alex Ferguson with the popular presidents who, like Roy Keane's, and, you know, the real winners. We've had a lovely balance. At Arsenal, we always went more technical. And now that he's come into a technical setup, he's went, well, how do I fix that? I'm young. Have I got the qualities that can make me a manager quickly? Because very quickly, if you look back at it, how he had the problems defensively, they've been there for 7 years. But why could Arsenal not fix them? Why could Emery not fix them? And suddenly I had to say, but I've not got anyone else to replace them. So you had to work round about that problem. And then he had to say to them, you need a shape and you need a belief that we can still score goals and start winning games instead of all these draws we're getting. And gradually you could see when he left Aubameyang at a couple of the teams, not because of lack of form, just because he was telling everybody else, I'm the decision maker. And that leadership quality and the authority he's showing has been absolutely spot on. So I applaud him. I really did think when they signed him, he would be a real good one for us. And it was a real return of Arsenal, and it'll be time. But yes, overall, who can't be impressed by what Arteta's done?
For sure. Let's talk a little bit about Aubameyang. You know all about scoring a brace in a big cup final in Wembley, obviously the 87 League Cup against Liverpool. Aubameyang, and in the semi-final, final, you put a chance on his plate, he's going to take it. Just to put it into context how impressive his overall performance was on Saturday.
Well, I think there's been little time since Arteta came in that he looked frustrated, and I think that's where we'll go, well, he definitely is going. You know, we can't do anything. It doesn't matter what we say to him, because he's saying, I want to play at a top club, but who's in for me? So is it Juventus? Is it you know, Barcelona? Is it Real Madrid? But the COVID thing has caused a lot of problems within the footballing network. I think this guy is so clever. I mean, I'm not big into MTVs and all those type of shows that players get involved in, but I did watch one with Arteta in his house, and he had his mum there cooking, he had his wife there, he had kids. And then I went to somewhere in Italy, and the lifestyle that Aubameyang's got in London and at Arsenal is stardust. And I think he likes that. I think he plays on that. He's got his supercars, and He can do whatever he wants because he's the king. And I think gradually what you've seen is he can say to Arsenal, if this is about money, then this is what you need to pay me. If it's not, and I just want to move, Arsenal can't stop it. But the last 5 or 6 games, he's looked to me, he's working hard going back the way. He's an absolute gold machine. But when you see the smile and the appreciation of what he does, which is brilliantly scoring goals, but also the link up with Pepe, with Arteta, with Lacazette, with the midfield players, that tells me there's something in there that he's loving. And for that, we love him. Now, the Ozil situation and the Sanchez situation and the Thierry Henry situation, when we say they want to go, if he wants to go, we can't stop it. But I'm hoping what I see is because he puts the shift in, is that he feels that Arteta could be right. Now, that means we have to pay him Ozil's wages, we pay him it. And the reason being, he guarantees goals. And if you guarantee goals at Arsenal, you guarantee that Arsenal are going to get closer to winning the title and getting back to the Champions League.
And you also have the benefit of a manager who's clearly made a decision that his attitude is in the right place, because you mentioned the cars, and I think Mikel Arteta had a few off-field questions about Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang until he actually worked with the guy and realised I was wrong. And that speaks volumes of Arteta as a manager as well, that he can actually say, I've changed my mind on this guy.
Well, I think so, because I recall, I'm trying to think back to when it was, but he started to change, and I think it was the quarterfinals at FA Cup. I think it was Sheffield United. And we were doing the build-up to different games and how he was going to assess things, because young Saka was looking really special. Martinelli, unfortunately, was injured, but he looked special. Eddie Nketiah, what are we going to do with him? Is he going to... And suddenly, Aubameyang looked at young Eddie Nketiah coming in, but he didn't get the number 9. Eddie did. And then I think he went, I want you, Aubameyang, to be working and helping Saka or Tierney, whoever's playing that role. And he didn't do it for 2 games. And I think that's when Arteta went, I don't know if I've lost him. But gradually, but surely, you started to see Aubameyang be the leader, be the captain. I know he dropped the cup at the weekend, but, there was a sign of, have you earned the right to be the captain? Because Arsenal have struggled for a captain for years, as you know. But he looks the part. He looks as if he's embraced it. He looks as if he looks at it and smiles to the other players and says, come on, give me more. I can score goals for you, but you have got to do the other parts. And I really do think that was the turnaround point for Arteta, that says, I won't judge you on a personal level off the field. I need to see it on the field and in training. And I think Guardiola had exactly the same focus. When he took over Barcelona, it wasn't about who was driving special cars, who was in the first team, the second team. It was about what talent fits into my style. And Aubameyang fits into that in abundance. And that's why I think Arteta's now saying, he guarantees me 25 goals a season. I must keep him.
Putting your striker's hat on for a moment, where does Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang rank in terms of the continent's best goal scorers at the moment?
Oh, well, he's right up there. Absolutely no doubt he's right up there. And that's why I can see Real Madrid and Juve and all them looking at buying him, because they're all trying to do deals to sell off because they need some money. Everybody needs it, Barcelona included. And then they're trying to work out who's cheaper, who's the best buy. And because of Aubameyang's age, people try to look at that number. Because at one stage, I don't know if you've seen the media stuff over here, but, it was, especially in London, it was suggesting about 30 million quid for Aubameyang. I thought, who put that number on? I mean, that's ridiculous. But that's the market, how it can go up and down. So I generally do think that I can understand how people judge. But Messi's the best in the world that I've ever seen, because he does it every season. Ronaldo, people can openly debate with me about their opinion, whether he's the best or not. But they do it every season. Aubameyang has been doing it for a long time now. Yeah. And I think he loves doing it. And I do generally believe that if I said to him right now, the big clubs you can go to, well, there's 2 in England that are bigger than Arsenal. There's Liverpool and there's Man City. Does he really want to go and join Manchester United? Are they getting closer? My answer yet is no. I still think Man City and Liverpool are still a way out there. I don't think Juventus are miles ahead because they keep winning the league in Italy. And Barcelona is struggling for cash. And I don't think Real Madrid are actually so rich as what they were and what they want. So I'm finding that for one of the best strikers, certainly one of the best finishers in world football, I am very optimistic about him being in the red and white of Arsenal.
Yeah, and I think there's certainly a vast array of attacking talents doing the rounds at the moment as well. And hopefully, from an Arsenal perspective, the 31-year-old thing actually dissuades people from investing long term in Aubameyang as well. So that's probably one of the hopeful notes from an Arsenal point of view.
It is, because when I look at the the so-called five, I mean, Bayern Munich would probably come into that category, but Lewandowski says he's best goal scorer in season ever, and I think he's similar age. So why would they want to break that up? I don't see it. And I really do think there's a small margin of the type of clubs that he belongs to. And I think that margin has shrunk. And, the levels of players that we're looking at, like everybody's talking about, the Bala, Martinez, and, all these type of Harry Kane for Manchester United, all these type of guys, I mean, Aubameyang has been doing it with regularity, but I don't know, there's something in there. Maybe it's also the little link that he had with Dortmund, that he helped make Dortmund become a big club again after being in the doldrums. Maybe this is how he sees Arsenal, being in the doldrums, gradually getting right back to the top again, and him being a major fabric of that. So, yeah. I mean, we have to be careful that we don't get carried away, that he might just say one day, I'm not re-signing. But, I really do. The small choices that he has, I think, refit him perfectly.
In terms of other summer business then for Arsenal, they've been linked with Philippe Coutinho this morning. The Willian links are getting stronger and stronger. Jack Grealish was mentioned as a possible Arsenal target last week. What are you thinking in terms of which is the most legitimate of the possible transfers that Arsenal have been linked with over the last little while?
Well, sometimes it discourages me, I have to be honest. In terms of Willian, well, he's a free agent, so you can get him on the cheap. You give him a big salary, and you say, right, are you good enough? This guy's a quality player, I don't deny that. But there's the age special, and I look at people like Nelson, like Saka, that want to come into the team and do well. Martinelli, when he comes back, will be a centre forward, and then Keith. So I don't really see where the purchase makes sense to Arsenal. Willian, for a free agent, yeah, I can get that one, because you want to build up a big squad. And I expect Arsenal to unload maybe 7 or 8, could be more. 7 or 8, I would suspect. The thing that always concerns me, that Saliba has signed and will start the new campaign, which is great. He's young, he's fast, but he's still slightly naive when I watched him playing for St Etienne. But we need other centre-backs. We need 2 more centre-backs. I do believe we need a right-back. I think there's no disrespect, but I think Socrates' time is up. I know Mustafi is injured, so we can't sell him, but I think his time is up. Rob Holding, I think, has been unfairly treated, because it's not his fault they couldn't make him better. Can he reach the heights that I expect him to get to? I'm not sure. So if the right offer comes in, I would sell him. But Arsenal's master plan has to be 2 centre-backs. We've got 2 strong goalkeepers now. We probably need a cover just in case Kieran Tierney was to get a little bit injured again. Kolasinac actually fits that, but he's not a natural defender. So 2 centre-backs, a right-back, and then I see 7 or 8 people getting sold. I would like to see Ceballos staying again. It looks as if that's possible, because he's not, I'm not a great believer in the protectors in front of a back three. Yes, you need them. They're there for a reason. But Gilberto Silva was one of the best we had. He wasn't the most physical or the quickest we ever had. You need someone who understands the position. Xhaka doesn't always do it for me. He gives the ball away too cheaply. So I wouldn't mind somebody in that position also beside Ceballos, because I think Torreira will go. I think obviously Guendouzi will go. And I think with the sales that you'll get, I think that could bring us forward to really say we can get 3 defenders in. And I think that's where Arsenal go. That's where the problems have always been. And it's stuck everybody in the eye, and surely Arteta's seen it. I believe he has.
It's going to be interesting as well to see how far up the table it actually does take them next season. Like you've mentioned Manchester United there in passing about how you feel that they're a step below the top 2 yet. You obviously got a great look at Chelsea on Saturday and where their weaknesses lie. It is going to be one of the more fascinating questions looking ahead to the new season. Who is going to finish 3rd? Who's best placed in your view to finish outside the top 2?
I would say at the moment it's Manchester United. I mean, they finished 3rd because of the failures of others. It's Arsenal's worst season. Spurs were pretty ordinary. Leicester fell away. And of course, Chelsea had a roller coaster season, not just by youth, but the same problems as Arsenal, if I'm being honest. Struggling defensively, couldn't get a settled defence, and not a very good keeper. Whereas we proved we've got two good keepers. So I think if Arsenal were to get two defenders in, I think it makes them third best. Manchester United have more financial muscle than the Arsenal. They have better prospects of solving that situation. But I don't think I'm being honest, I really don't. If Arsenal signed two defenders, I really do think Arsenal and Manchester United become the next level. Chelsea have to sign. They've signed Werner, but again, another attacker. I think Chelsea need three defenders. I think, depending on who Leicester sign, because we know Brendan Rodgers' style, but I think he needs 3 or 4 players, and a strong talk here in Glasgow that he's very favourable for Edouard at Celtic. That would be a good signing for him. But yeah, the rest, I mean, will Spurs get stronger under Mourinho? I'm not convinced they will. I think Wolves are good, but maybe they've hit their peak. So, you know, lots of things. I really do think if Arsenal sign 2 defenders, Arsenal and Manchester United are the next best.
Right, very interesting. While we're talking about transfers, Charlie, I really wanted to just get a few memories from your own career and kind of talking about the idea of big transfers, 1983, Celtic to Arsenal. Like, I mean, so many moves are hyped at the moment. I mean, there's transfers talked about every single day on every sports channel at the moment. Yeah. Back then, that wasn't the case. But I'd say as far as the time went, your move was as hyped a transfer as you possibly could have had in the early 80s. Did you feel that on the inside, making that move from Celtic to Arsenal?
Yeah, I most certainly did. You know, when I look back, I've not got a bad word to say about Arsenal. I know I criticise the teams on a fairly regular basis when it doesn't go right, but that's part of being a fan. That's where it comes from here. But up here, there's no doubt when I was available at the time, Celtic simply wanted to sell me. I had no issue. The player had no control over the contract situation. You know, people would say to me, well, you could say no. I didn't want to leave Celtic at the time. I thought it was too early for me. But they were adamant that they wanted to cash in. And then I had Liverpool, Inter Milan, Manchester United, Spurs and Arsenal all interested in signing me. The one that made the biggest sense was Liverpool by a mile. They were the best team on the planet. But could I actually get into the team with Dalglish and Rush? I think I believed in my ability, but was I convinced that Liverpool could change the team and let me in? I had my doubts. That's why I didn't sign. The only reason I didn't sign for King Kenny and Liverpool. But Arsenal were trying. Yes, it was. You know, I was with Scotland international team at the time. I was sharing rooms with Graham Souness, who was the captain and one of the true world-class players I played with. And they were telling me everything about Liverpool. And of course, I knew everything about Liverpool, but I kept saying the same thing. How am I going to replace King Kenny Dalglish or Ian Rush? It's just not feasible right now. And I would have to be patient and wait. And I was used to playing in Europe with Celtic. I was playing every week. And because of that, I didn't really want to, you know, be getting choked a little bit. So I believed Arsenal were trying to do the right thing. They were trying to sign Liam Brady. They were trying to sign back from Italy. They were trying to sign Ray Wilkins from Chelsea. And I thought it started to believe in a bit of change. Now, that never happened. And it was a bit painful, if I'm being honest, when I first went there, because it was boring Arsenal. But it's a club I've got remarkable respect for. I loved my time there. The fans were magnificent with me, most of them. But I think, in all honesty, when I look back in it, you know, you make your choice thinking that your style is important. Now, my style didn't really fit into the Arsenal criteria, if I'm being fair. Not their fault, not my fault, just the way it was. It did fit in to the Liverpool criteria, but could I get in the team? So for players now, that's where I look at Aubameyang, I look at people like Edouard, and I say, these talented boys, you have to go to a style that suits. I mean, when Thierry Henry did well to say that at the time, Thierry Henry got the opportunity to be the best player I've ever seen at Arsenal. And when he decided he wanted to go to Barcelona, I thought, it will take him time because it doesn't just fit like a glove. And it did take him time. And it did eventually fit like a glove. But he didn't stay there long. And that's the reality of the players trying to make the right decision, which is the right fit for them, rather than just choking. We had that before. We've seen Sanchez go to Manchester United and struggle when he was a warrior for us at Arsenal. So these things have to be taken into account. And I think that's why a lot of the players now are in control. They know what the finances are. That's not the issue. It's the style thing.
Were you very conscious at the time, Charlie, of how highly rated you were? It must seem like a fairly stupid question, considering your statistics were off the charts in Scotland at the time. But to be described as the most exciting player to emerge in Britain since George Best, that was a quote from the newspapers at the time. Did that add to your sense of pressure at the time as a young 21-year-old?
Yes, yeah, it did, absolutely, no doubt. It's when you go and play in the European Cup for Celtic and you're going to Juventus, and, you know, before when we used to turn up, we didn't really get much media coverage. All of a sudden, there was a little bit more, and it was kind of pinning in me, a little bit more extravagance than that. And I remember being in Romania before we played Juve, and they asked to take me on the TV, and Celtic were going, hold on, what happens here? And I was trying to accept it myself, you know, and understand. When my manager at the time, God rest him, was Billy McNeil, who'd won the European Cup for Celtic. And he was saying to me, you know, I've never really came across this before, even when we had the lines. Jimmy Johnson went to Real Madrid in a friendly and had them all applauding, and they were all raving about him, but very quickly they forgot about it because you hardly seen it in the TV. So, yeah, it was building up, and then the interest from Inter Milan, I think, started the little craze of interest. So it was added pressure because, if I'm being realistic, I mean, people look at the personality I had or what I was trying to be. I really wasn't trying to be the superstar. I was just trying to be a really top player in Celtic's team and nailing down my position. And as it got better, I wanted to get better. But I wasn't thinking of stardom. I wasn't thinking of, God help me. I mean, being mentioned with George Best, who ended up a real good friend of mine. But, I mean, that was ridiculous. I mean, the talent that guy had was just out of this planet. And he played at the biggest club in the world at that time, and he did. So, yeah, I think it was slightly unfair, but it was a burden that they gave me, they tagged me, just like Champagne Charlie when I couldn't afford champagne. But the reality was, yeah, you put up with it, and, you know, I had to learn to cope with it.
Did you love or hate that nickname?
No, I didn't like the nickname because when I first got into the first team at Celtic, I was on £30 a week. And the one thing I could never afford was champagne. I was never really a mad beer drinker. For whatever reason, I always quite liked wine. And, you know, there was just something about champagne, but it was a headline makers, you know, Charlie Bubbles sticks again, or champagne. It was an easy headline and a rather tame headline when I thought of creativity. But I could get it. I could understand it. You know, it was guy with an earring, wearing no socks. But everybody my age was dressing the way I was dressing. I was nothing different. But because I was scoring goals, I was getting this. So, yeah, it did bother me. And then I think by the time I got to 22, 23, I had to accept it. And I did accept it. In London, it was always tagged and people were calling me Champagne. And I thought, I don't quite get this sometimes, but there you go. It was something I had to learn to live with. But I never felt it. I fit the credentials of being named Champagne Charlie. There was so many.
Yeah, like I find it interesting as well that it's at that era when tabloid culture is really setting in, and there's a lot of footballers' personal lives that are being exposed, and like the George Best comparison perhaps is a good one considering the amount of his life that was exposed down through the years. And I'm sure you felt that firsthand.
Yeah, you do. And the strange thing is, when I got to London and signed for Arsenal, within about 3 months, the days of no mobiles and social media, you know, very quickly I was bumping into George Best because we were at functions together, and, you know, and Bestie was the most shy superstar I've ever met in my life. He was just a quiet, very humble man that didn't like too many people round about him. There was no hangers-on with George Best. So then I was getting tagged because, you know, I could go out and have a few drinks with friends and be at a couple of nice Stardust parties, and that would be on a Tuesday, but the press would put it in on a Saturday morning. So it looked as if I was out on the Friday night. So it was all very convenient because you couldn't stand up and question it. So, yes, it was easy to tag it. But then again, I was 21. I was a single guy. I was moving to London with a reputation that I couldn't control. And people say, well, you didn't need to go out. But hold on a minute, well, you're blocking my lifestyle. So I have to change everything I do because I believe totally in hard work and training because I loved it and I loved doing it. I was always fit. I came back from a broken leg at Celtic and appreciated my fitness more. So I never quite always learned to accept what they were doing, and now I'm in the media myself, but I don't really look at people's personal lives. I look at their football, and then after that, that's entirely up to them. So they're not judged like that, but it was something taken on board, but hey, to be mentioned in the same breath sometimes with George Best now is no bad thing.
I think that individuality is always a good thing, and perhaps people ahead of their time in the 80s would have been able to realize that. Like from the outside looking in, it definitely felt to me that the last person you would have wanted to manage you at a certain point would have been George Graham, who does come in. I dare say he wasn't fond of the individuality as much as other managers might have been.
No, George wasn't. George got this reputation as a disciplinarian, and he wasn't the basis of it. He was a hard-nosed Glasgow boy, but George always felt he was very smooth. George always came in with his little sweater over with his wrap around in the neck, and he looks as if he was always going on tour to Europe. He always had a tan. He was always well-groomed, George, and he always had a nice car. And George liked that style of life, but he didn't like his players having it. And if you were slightly ahead of George, sadly for me, I always had a better car than George. Will I be dressed? I dress better. That's open for debate. But the whole realisation of it is, it was something that George was not overly fond of. But it didn't stop George working you in the training field and treating you the same. Because I think what George did realise is that I could put a shift in training. The thing I didn't fit in was George's squeezing from the front and everybody in off the ball really having to work hard like this. Myself, Kenny Sansom, Graham Ricks, these type of players, Stevie Williams at Arsenal at the time, Tony Woodcock, we never really played like that. We were all international players who played with the ball. And when George was coming in to start to change all this, he wanted pace, he wanted hunger, he wanted hard workers off the ball. Then we could very quickly realise that their time was coming to an end. George was a smashing coach, a really top coach, as his stats proved. But for us and for me, at least getting the first trophy on the boardroom, that was the start to help, not George in particular, but the club itself start to grab back. Hopefully this is a similar time. But no, George and I, later on, George banded me to the reserves just to keep me out of the picture, which I thought was very unfair. And any time I ever asked for a sit-down one-on-one with George to see if I could probably get away at the time, George always refused that. He never liked one-on-ones. He wasn't that man enough to stand up to me in that side of things. But, I would never take anything away from George as a coach. He was a different class.
Right, okay, that's very interesting. Like, I also find the final act of your club career fascinating as well. Like going back up to Scotland, going back to Celtic, and this era at Celtic is something that I find fascinating. We don't really talk about it too often here. We don't really talk about Liam Brady as a manager all that often, considering he was obviously such an iconic footballer. But what was your memories of those couple of years under Brady when you go back to play at Celtic under his management?
Well, I was quite pleased. I'd met Liam a couple of times. Liam and Graham Ricks, who was my great mate at Arsenal, were big pals from way back in the late 70s, early 80s. They spent a lot of time together and had great beliefs in about the way the game should be played. And there was a couple of nights in London, we had social nights out with Chippy. And I always thought, for such a superstar footballer, I could see him learning in Italy and understanding what the shape of a team should be. And when he got the Arsenal gig, I really did think, oh, this is encouraging. Be interesting to see. I knew it would take him time. I mean, I could go into the details of Rangers and how they were paying way over the top money and EBTs and everything were coming in. That's part of what's going on in Scottish football for such a long time. But at the time, they were buying Laudrup and Gascoigne and spending a fortune. And we had the old Celtic board who couldn't afford it. So it was really, really narrow budget. And it really limited players that you could bring in. And when Liam came, he had no money. He had what was there. He brought in Tony Cascarino, to be honest, struggled badly at Celtic. And then he was looking at people like Andy Payton. And there wasn't an area where he was going to make things better. He signed Stuart Slater from West Ham. And Stuart Slater was probably one of the better ones we had, but he found it really, really mentally tough. Because Celtic's a beast of a football club. You have to train and win every game. every day, every game. It's just the nature of the beast because what Glasgow is. And he really found that tough. The demands every day were tough. So Liam found it tough also that he couldn't turn it around because Rangers were the strongest. But at the time, Joe Jordan was a manager at Hearts and they were second best. Gradually, he brought Joe Jordan in to be his number 2. And very quickly, Liam Brady and Joe Jordan left the building, which was strange. But this was an old board that he had to manage in front of, who had no money, no ambition, and Liam was always going to struggle. It was a tough time. It was an absolutely wrong time for Liam to take the Celtic job, sadly, and that's why it never worked. Not because Liam didn't have the gift. It was just simply that Celtic were in the wreck.
And the unfortunate thing about football is that you are kind of held to the bad days in your career. It's totally unfair. I mean, like as you say, especially in Scotland, if there is a very, very strong Rangers team, then I mean your Celtic, your prospective opportunities might be lessened immediately. Yeah. That is how kind of simple it can be. We may just before we wrap up, get your take on the current Celtic situation. Then, I mean, great start for them at the weekend. Rangers snuck over the line. How far ahead of the pack are Celtic in your view? Is 10 in a row a near certainty, or are they going to work for it?
Well, the way it stands now, I wouldn't say it's a certainty. Rangers, and people can debate this everywhere because it's it's Stephen Gerrard across the road in Glasgow. He has improved them, no matter what the hardcore say. He's improved them, and I'll tell you the reasons why he's improved them. They're still in Europe this Thursday. They will go out, but that was a big return financially and a big for their reputation. He fills the stadium every week. There's no other manager that could have done that the way that he does it. And still 2 years into this, he's sold the season tickets again. He's improved them as a team. Sure, they didn't close the gap in Celtic last season, but this is a little bit like what Liam Brady faced when he was Celtic manager. It takes you time to build it. Have you got the time? Have you got the patience? Rangers have closed the gap. Celtic have had it easy and been too good for 9 solid years. But last year, there was a threat. Gradually, Rangers faltered. The danger for Celtic is players now control the market. And if Leeds, Everton, Newcastle, West Brom, these type of teams that's linked with Edouard were to come in and bid to entice Edouard to go and take the salary, and he wants to go, you will go. That would make it a very even playing field, in my opinion, because Rangers have been producing. Even if they sell Morelos, it makes no difference. They'll get a player who can score 20 goals. It doesn't need to be £8 million players. But Celtic are in the driving seat because they have the knowledge, they have the will for it. But at the moment, Edouard is the key to it. But not re-signing Foster, it was a bit of a loss. But Edouard is the key. If he stays, Celtic win 10 in a row. If he decides that he wants to take a deal, Celtic are now on an 11 even field with Rangers, and it could go either way.
Right, that's a very blunt way of putting it, and it probably is the case. John Hartson was with us on Friday, and he said that Stephen Gerrard has not been a success at Rangers so far. But from the way you're talking, it seems that let's not judge him on what he hasn't won trophy-wise just yet. They've actually made big leaps forward.
Yeah, well, I know John and Chris Sutton and all the other ex-Celtic players have been saying that quite regular now that they work for Celtic TV. But, you know, the essence of it is that I would just simply say, if you're the second best team in the country by a mile, when Gerrard took over, they weren't even the second best team. You know, Aberdeen were better than them. And all I would say is, how do you judge success? You know, I look at our Mikel Arteta and I judge success. He said 1 trophy and it all looks good. Klopp, people were saying that he wasn't good enough 18 months ago. You'll never make it at Liverpool. You should be out. Look at him now. So, you know, people have their own opinion and sometimes their own agenda on it. All I can say, it depends how you want to balance it. If you want to balance it in fairness, then I say Gerrard's route into Europe has lasted longer than Celtic's. That's a success. They were never going to win it. No over Celtic. They should have beat Celtic in the League Cup. They didn't, but that's not success. So I see it getting closer. I see them filling the stadium. I see the team improving. And I think that's success. That doesn't mean you win a trophy. I'm sure there's plenty of managers that John Hartson and others played under who were very good. Were they ever successful? Probably at the clubs. Was Eddie Howe successful in bringing Bournemouth from the ranks of nothing to 5 years in the Premier League? Yes, that's success. Did he win anything? No.
Yeah, it's not all down to trophies. At the end of the day, everything is relative. Listen, Charlie, it's been great chatting to you. Thanks a million for being so generous with your time, and hopefully chat to you again soon.
Brilliant. Take care.